Welcome to this deep dive where we take what you've been reading and listening to and really get under the surface.
Yeah, try to connect the dots.
Exactly. So today we're looking at the world of the rapper BigXThaPlug. And it's fascinating because we're seeing these two really striking, almost, clashing aspects of his story right now.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, you've got this childhood experience that sounds, intense, almost like something out of a movie.
Right.
And then on the other, this very recent brush with the law.
Yeah, it definitely makes you pause and think about, the journey that brings someone to this point.
Totally.
Absolutely. And when you put these pieces together, these seemingly sort of separate events, you start to get a glimpse into the complexities.
Complexities that shape a life and artistic perspective, maybe.
For sure. It's about more than just the headlines, isn't it? It's trying to understand the forces at play, potentially.
Okay, so let's dive into that childhood memory first. Wow, it's a really powerful image.
It is.
BigXThaPlug recently talked about being a young kid, just, watching Scooby-Doo on the couch. A normal kid thing.
Completely normal.
And then his mother shot an intruder.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a scene you don't easily forget. What really jumps out at you there?
Well, it's that contrast, isn't it? The sheer stark contrast.
Right.
You've got the symbol of pure childhood innocence, a cartoon, right there next to this act of intense violence.
Happening right in front of them.
Exactly. And that kind of sharp juxtaposition, especially when you're so young, so formative, it can have a profound impact, a lasting one.
He even said, "I'll never forget it."
Which just underlines it, right? The significance of that moment. Experiencing something like that, seeing violence as a kid, it can really affect things like trust, how you regulate emotions, even how you assess risk later on.
Consciously or unconsciously, you mean?
Yeah, both. It can play out in all sorts of ways.
And it sounds like it wasn't just a one-off traumatic event either. He mentioned his mother was the first person he ever saw holding a gun.
Mm-hmm. And not just holding one.
No. He said, pretty plainly actually, that he knew his mother from selling drugs and shooting at people.
Yeah.
He didn't present it like some shocking revelation, more like, that was his reality growing up.
Exactly. And for a child to see those kinds of activities as just sort of normal, part of their environment, it really shifts your understanding of their baseline.
What they consider normal.
Right. It's just this level of exposure to a world that, frankly, most people never see. And that early normalization of really intense situations, it likely shapes how they see safety, societal norms, big stuff.
But now this was all before he was 9 years old, right? Because he lived with her until then.
That's what was indicated. Yeah, before 9, which just emphasizes how deeply ingrained those early experiences might be.
It's still hard to wrap your head around. Scooby-Doo on the TV. And then this sudden life-altering violence, the vulnerability of a child in that situation, seeing something so extreme, it's tough to really gauge the long-term effects.
It really is. Childhood trauma can have such far-reaching consequences. It can influence everything, Emotional responses, how you handle conflict, stress. It just becomes part of your internal framework, how you see the world.
It's quite a backdrop to consider alongside the more recent news.
It definitely is jarring.
Which brings us to February. BigXThaPlug was arrested in Arlington, Texas. And apparently, it all started with something pretty routine.
A traffic stop.
Yeah, expired tags. Simple as that.
And that's often how it happens, isn't it? A minor infraction can sometimes uncover other potential issues when police get involved.
Exactly. So the arresting officer reportedly said they smelled marijuana.
Okay.
And that then led to a search of the car. There was someone else in the car too, a passenger, Cleotis Landum.
Landum. Same last name as BigXThaPlug. His birth name is Xavier Landum.
Right. The report did note, though, that their relationship wasn't confirmed at the time.
Okay.
Obviously, the shared last name suggests maybe family, maybe a close friend, something. But like you said, the report states it's not confirmed.
It's a detail that, it could point different ways. But without confirmation, it's just speculation. Law enforcement would likely look into that, though.
Makes sense. So during the search, police reported finding cigarettes and leafy green substance. And also a gun in the vehicle.
Right.
And this led to charges for both of them. For Cleotis Landum, the passenger, it was a few more serious things.
Okay, like what?
An outstanding warrant, unlawful carrying of a weapon, possession of less than 1 gram of a controlled substance, and also possession of under 2 ounces of marijuana.
So a more expensive list of allegations for the passenger.
Definitely. And for BigXThaPlug himself, the charge reported was possession of less than 2 ounces of marijuana.
Okay.
Which is worth mentioning. In Texas, possession under 2 ounces is typically a Class B misdemeanor. There are penalties, of course, but the specifics can vary.
And he was released on bail later.
That's right, yeah. He was released on bail.
And it's important to remember, an arrest, charges, these are allegations, part of the legal process. They haven't been resolved in court yet.
Absolutely crucial point.
Being out on bail usually suggests the court doesn't see him as a flight risk or immediate danger.
Right. We're just outlining the reported events as they happened. Now, in kind of a stark contrast to this whole legal issue,
Yeah.
we also have news of a pretty big step forward in his career. BigXThaPlug is lined up as a supporting act on Lil Baby's WAN World Tour.
Wow, okay. That's huge.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's a massive opportunity for any rising artist. Being on tour with someone as established as Lil Baby, that can seriously boost your audience, raise your profile in the industry.
For sure. The tour kicks off June 3rd in Houston. The U.S. leg runs through July 1st.
And then international dates.
Yep. Europe in September, then Australia in October. And BigXThaPlug is scheduled for nearly all the U.S. dates, just not L.A., and all the Australian shows, too.
So he's got a really significant presence on this tour. That says a lot about his career momentum, doesn't it? Despite the recent arrest.
It really does.
It suggests the industry sees his talent, his potential.
Seems like it. And there are other supporting acts joining, too, at different points.
Yeah.
NLE Choppa is on most U.S. dates. Loey Shimmy is on all U.S. dates.
Sounds like a well-put-together lineup.
Yeah.
That's often the plan with these big tours, right? Bring together artists who vibe with a similar audience, create a really compelling show.
Makes sense. So when you take these two recent things, the arrest, the tour announcement, and then you add in that incredibly formative, maybe traumatic childhood story,
Yeah.
it really paints a picture of a complex journey, maybe a challenging one. You've got these really high highs and pretty low lows happening close together.
It absolutely highlights the multifaceted nature of people, especially those in the public eye. Early life stuff can have such a profound, lasting impact. And then navigating the pressures, the visibility of a music career, that brings its own set of unique challenges too.
So this deep dive into BigXThaPlug's recent situation and his recounted childhood really shows how those early experiences can echo, right? Shape a person's path.
Definitely.
And it also makes you think about how public figures manage all these complexities, especially under constant scrutiny, while they're trying to build their careers.
It really does. And it brings up a bigger question, perhaps, for everyone listening. Thinking about the intensity of his early life and where he is now, what does that suggest about resilience? About the different paths people take? And maybe, how do we as the public process these different sides of someone's story when we form our opinions? It's a really fascinating intersection of personal history, current events, and public life.